What's up, guys? Before we get into today's review, check this out right here. This is the first ever piece of Gearist gear that we have put out as a limited edition technical trucker hat from Boko Gear. This thing is ready to be sweat on, crushed on, swum in. I guess you could probably swim in it. You could have a beer in this hat. It's pretty awesome. Definitely be sure to check the description of this video because this is a limited run of this hat. Available right now for pre-order. Once you pre-order, we hit our certain limit. We put that order in. These hats should ship out right around the end of May 2016. If you're watching this and that hat is no longer available, definitely check out the description anyway because we're always going to have a new piece of gear coming out. So be sure to check those out. And now, let's get into the review. What's up, everyone? Brandon here from Gearist. Today we're going to be taking a look at the EM Road N2 version 3 from Pearl Izumi. Since we first began reviewing Pearl Izumi's line of E-Motion running shoes way back when, I can't even remember, maybe 2013 or something like that, we were very impressed with their consistency of ride and smoothness of ride. That is the thing that stood out for me. And within that, one of the things that stood out most to me was Pearl's dedication to the whole if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. They're not messing with too much of what made those shoes great, and such is the case with this. Now, with the EM Road N2 version 2, this shoe right here, we took a look at this toward the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And I gotta tell you, as I'm gonna point out a little bit here today, that not a whole lot has changed in this shoe, which is a good thing because this was such a good shoe to begin with. This is going to be something of an interesting review because, as I just mentioned, there's not a lot that has changed between these two versions of the shoe. So, just in case I miss anything in going over this shoe that you're curious in, why don't you go ahead and click on this right here and it will take you over to our N2 version 2 review where you can take a look at that in kind of a sidebar if you want to. I'll give you 1 second to look at that. Alright, we're good. As we take a look at the outsole of this guy, it is exactly identical to the outsole of version 2 of this shoe. Now, one of the things that I'm still left wondering about this is why there is more rubber extended up the medial side of the outsole right here toward the back than there is up the lateral side, because the lateral side is where everybody lands. What I would do if this were me is I would take this piece of rubber and slap it here. It would add no additional weight, but it would add that additional security over here because, as you can see, there is wear right there because that's just exposed EVA or kind of E-Motion one-to-one foam. So there is going to be some wear there. It's not huge, and with about 40 miles on it, it's still holding up very, very well. I have zero problems with the durability of this. But again, this has no wear on it. There's no wear here. There's no wear here. There's just plain rubber the way that it came out of the box. So putting this here would make a little more sense from a durability standpoint for me. Apart from that, you can still see this line right here, which is basically taking you through the gait cycle. You've got a good amount of rubber up here in the front. These are still broken down into these pods with these wave-like flex grooves, which keeps the shoe nice and flexible. And you can also see that there is, again, that little bit of exposed EVA foam here and on these two panels here. Moving into the midsole of this shoe, there is no change from version 2 that I have been able to notice. Now, to confirm that I actually wore one shoe on one foot and one shoe on the other for several runs, I think like 3 or 4 runs, which is more than I would normally test with something like that, mainly because you get a bunch of funny looks. But I noticed absolutely no difference in either of these things. I even swapped feet, put one on the right foot, one on the left foot, one on the left foot, one on the right foot, switched them around just to make sure the smoothness is still there. It feels really, really excellent underfoot. In terms of feel, if Pearl has made any changes with the material on the inside of this midsole here, I didn't notice it. And again, there was no noticeable difference whatsoever in the way that it performed or the way that it rode. It remains a very smooth ride, one of my favorite out there. In fact, the entire E-Motion line from the N0 up to the N3, which is coming out soon, the N3 Trail, which we just recently got our feet in for the first time, there is a great ride across the board. And so this really remains the same, which I'll talk about in the ride section. It is a little bit higher drop than I would prefer, and that's always been the case because it's an 8mm, technically an 8mm offset. Again, Pearl does have what they call their dynamic offset, which is to say that as you move through the gait cycle, the drop does change. But to be fair, that's pretty much the same with any shoe as you go in and out of compressing foam in different areas. But an 8mm offset from the heel to the forefoot. Now let's move into the upper, where the most noticeable change between this version of the shoe and this version of the shoe occurred. The first thing that I'll point out is that the mesh is a little bit of a pattern change, but there's no real difference to it. It's still the same amount of breathability durability that I can tell. Still very, very comfortable, still handles the foot well, and keeps out debris nicely. In version 2 of this shoe, that's where Pearl Izumi first started playing around with 3D printed overlays instead of bonded overlays, and in that case, they were definitely very strong. However, they've matured a little bit in version 3 in that they've been able to lose a little bit of their thickness but still maintain the amount of durability and support that you want to see in something like that. One of the biggest changes to the upper is something that you may not actually be able to see, but I'll try to help you out here by opening up the shoe right along here on the medial arch. Now here's a picture that you can take a look at. Right on that medial arch, you can see this band of 5 almost like Adidas-like bands that sit there that keep things nice and supported on that side. These actually wind up feeling a lot like a midfoot wrap, which is really nice and makes it a little more stable from the outside when you're doing something that requires more agility, when you're giving turns to this, when you're asking the shoe to move around a little bit more. And probably the biggest thing they do is they really reinforce this very lightweight upper that is on here. They reinforce the thinned out 3D printed on overlays that are in here in the medial midfoot. As I mentioned, the changes in the upper of the shoe are where they're definitely the most noticeable changes to this model versus version 2, but it's also where I would have expected it to lose a little bit of weight, and it didn't, with both of these shoes coming in at exactly the same weight, which is a not super lightweight 11 ounces per shoe in a men's size 11 on our scale. With regard to fit, this guy fit me exactly as version 2 did. I didn't feel the need to have to change my sizing at all. Our buddy Ethan Newberry, the Ginger Runner, found that he had to go up by about a half size. I did not find that at all. This fit me exactly where I would want it to. I was very comfortable. But again, you never know how somebody's foot is going to fit into a particular model, and you never know how the manufacturing tolerances may be put into a shoe from one manufacturing run to another. The fit in specific places, let's start at the back of the shoe here with the heel cup. Just like in version 2, there's a fairly semi-rigid heel cup in this area, or heel counter in this area. Keeps things nice and knocked down. Very nice shape inside there, which is further shaped by quite a bit material, quite a bit of foam around the collar here that probably could be lessened a little bit, but nevertheless, the heel cup is very, very nice when locked down. Moving into the midfoot here, this is a very nice shoe, and that addition of those stripes on that medial side to me made me feel like when I cinched down, I didn't have to kind of come as hard down on the shoe because I was getting that extra support, not just from the mesh and the external overlays, but those internal microfiber overlays that are kind of set up against the medial inside of the midfoot there. Finally, as with version 2, the toe box is something that I really like. That forefoot, first right across the metatarsal heads, there's good room, and then up into the actual toe box itself. I had plenty of room for wiggle and splay. As with most shoes though, I would again like to see a couple more millimeters blown out toward the lateral side there, just to give that little bit of extra room, but keeping this the same, keeping that midfoot so you don't feel swimmy in the forefoot, but so basically this is nice and locked down and this kind of blooms a little bit. That would be a nice addition, but in general, I really like the forefoot of this. The ride of this shoe, now I touched on this a second ago. If you've not gotten your feet into a pair of Pearl Izumi's Emotion line shoes, you really need to, because I promise you that that ride is going to be one of the mechanically smoothest that you're going to find out there. That's right. They're not going with throwing a bunch of soft foam under your foot, which is definitely a solution that some people find very, very useful. In this case, they're using biomechanical or mechanical cushioning, basically using the inherent cushioning that your body provides from up the kinetic chain, your ankles, knees, hips, and so on, that's going to really let that kind of roll into the ground, and you're going to feel this roll combined with that natural elasticity that is in your body, and that is where the cushioning in the shoe comes from. You've got a relatively firm midsole on this, but again, it's not something that you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable. It is very, very comfortable, and that ride is super, super smooth. And it somehow still manages to balance that with a very responsive ride, and actually quite poppy, even for an 11 ounce in my size 11, an 11 ounce shoe. Again, there is the N1, this is the N2 version, but you could probably find one of the early Emotion line of shoes for a screaming deal right now. So check the links down in the description below, because we may be able to find some of like version 1. I know this is version 3, but version 1 or 2 for some really fantastic deals. As with version 2, this version 3 of the EM Road N2 from Pearl Izumi is one of my favorite riding shoes out there. Very, very comfortable, still responsive, a little heavy, but that's okay. And it's just a really solid shoe for a daily driver and even for racing. There are some minor updates on this, but they're only minor. And that kind of leaves me with the question, why is there an update to this? Why is it an entirely new version of this shoe? Because the updates really are effectively just a couple of overlay changes and that addition to the medial upper midsole there, or upper midfoot rather. I don't quite understand why there has not been more of an evolution, but again, that's coupled with me saying earlier in this review, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So regardless, I'll take the changes. They're very solid. I just am curious as to why they chose to roll out a different version when version 2 is obviously working so well, and they could have just added, made like an upper change and called it like a version 2.5 or something like that. I don't know, but it's just a curious thing to me how versions are done, and Pearl's not the only one that rolls out shoes like that, so I'm just wondering. This also has the same price tag as version 2, which right now you can find for between $90 and $120. $120 I think is their retail price, so be sure to check the buy links down below once again, because we may have found this for a lot cheaper, because by the sense of time we posted the written review of this, it's been about 4 weeks, and finding something like this for a good deal, about $85, is going to be pretty freaking amazing, so definitely be sure to check that out. Before we get to the question of the day, guys, please don't forget to like and favorite this video and subscribe to our channel. Subscribing is the lifeblood of us here at Gearist on YouTube. So please be sure to subscribe and share this video with your friends. If you've got somebody who needs a new running shoe or you think they'd like to check this out, we want to talk to them. So thanks so much for doing that. And now, here's our question of the day, and that is with regard to shoe updates or tent updates or bike updates or what have you, what to you constitutes enough of a change to really dictate a new version altogether? Let us know down in the comments section below. Guys, thanks so much for watching today. If you've got any questions about this or any of our videos or reviews, please don't hesitate to email info@gearist.com or leave a question down in the comments section below. As always, please follow us on all our social media outlets, which you can see here on my right, your left, especially that YouTube button down there in the corner. That subscribes you to our channel, which is a huge advantage to us. As always, please include the hashtag I'm a Gearist on all your Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook posts. That means lots to us and helps us spread the word. Please definitely do that, and if you've got any questions about anything, let us know, guys. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us today, and we will see you next time.